Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thank you very much for checking out the video, spending some time with me today. Always very grateful for that. And guys, we're coming up on spring. Here it is, it's March when we're filming this video. The next month is going to be the best time of year to fish wacky rig. So we're going to give you guys a refresher course on wacky rig fishing. I'm going to show you some of my favorite colors, how I like to set it up, and more importantly, we're going to talk about the areas you need to throw a wacky rig in to get a lot of bites in. So it's going to be a good informative video today. Also guys, just wanted to remind you, Solar Bat has a spring sale on my RB2 and RB3 series Solar Bat sunglasses, my signature series. If you get a pair in the spring sale going on right now, you can get them at 25% off. And then if you purchase any purchases over $100, you get a $30 mystery grab bag full of stuff from Solar Bat. So if you guys are interested in getting a good pair, I'll put my Solar Bat link in the description. You can order them there. And as far as for seeing fish in the springtime, guys, the optical clarity on these Solar Bats, second to none. Get you a pair of the high con yellow. That's going to allow you to see a bunch of those fish cruising around the water. And I just love watching fish swimming around the water. There's something fascinating about just seeing bass swimming in the water, and get you a pair of those glasses and you can see them real good. Okay guys, let's get into this wacky rigging deal. Wacky rigs have been around for quite a while. It's not anything that's new or flashy. And I'm going to put the wacky rig as far as definitely in the top 10 in the all-time fish producers. I think it's definitely in the top 10 of the most productive bass catching baits for not only numbers of fish, but quality of fish. It is a deadly technique to catch fish in a lot of different conditions. So first of all, I'm going to show you the basic rigging. We've been over some of this before if you're new to it, but I want to show you guys a little bit about it because I think a lot of people have some big misconceptions as far as how to rig a wacky rig. But anyway, the bait I use is the Zoom Zlinky. You can use the Cinco or any type of soft plastic stick bait, but a 5 or 6 inch soft stick bait, guys, is probably the best bait to throw for a wacky rig. Now, occasionally I will do like a Zoom trick worm for a little bit smaller diameter, but most all of my wacky rigging is with the 5 inch Zoom Zlinky here, like that. First thing, we've talked about this before, channel's famous for it. You want to always, rough up the plastic here, because a wacky rig, the more that you break up the salt inside of a soft plastic stick bait, the more you're going to get action out of the bait when it hangs down like this. So take some time to break this salt up and bring the salt to the surface. Now every one of them is different. Like these Zoom Zlinkies, they have like just a moderate level of salt in them, and a Yamamoto Cinco is packed full of salt. And also guys, I'll put in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description, I'll put all of my wacky rigging preferred baits in there. If you guys want to order some through that link, it's a good way to support the channel too. But anyway guys, by roughing this up, you're gonna notice that it's going to come down a lot more like that, and you're just it's gonna have more action by roughing it up. It actually, if you take just straight out of the box without doing it, and then rough one up and spend some time, you'll have twice the amount of limberness to it and twice the amount of action. So that's really important to do it. The next thing, guys, is do not use those little rubber collars. You see everybody doing it, including some pros that have these rubber collars. You don't want to do that. There's a couple different reasons. Number one is a wacky rig is a sight bait. It's a cleaner water bait. You can catch them on off-colored water, but I prefer to fish it in clear water. And these fish, when a wacky rig's fallen or it's on the bottom, these fish get real close to it. They nose up like an inch away from it. And if you've got one of those plastic collars right there, it's a visual strike deterrent. And also with the plastic collar, it requires you to hook the bait like that on there. So when this bait falls, the hook is parallel to the bait like that. So you're not going to get as good a hook at. Don't just forget about putting those keepers on there. Just take your hook and put it right through the middle of the bait like that. That way when it falls with the point up, just like this. Those fish grab it, you set the hook, gets them through the roof of the mouth at every time. Also guys, the hook is really important. I'll put this hook that I use in the link of my Tackle Warehouse link also. This is a Gamakatsu G Finesse heavy cover worm hook here in a 1/0 size. Two mistakes that most people use with a wacky rig that is going to cost you fish. Number one, Don't use one of those little octopus circle hooks on there. They're fish losing some bitches. Get you a straight shank hook, this Gamakatsu hybrid, this Gamakatsu G-Finesse worm hook. Straight shank hook is going to get you more bites and it's going to allow you to hook a lot more. And you don't want to go too big, you want to go small. I use a 1/0 hook for almost everything in there. Big old honking hook's not going to help you out any. So that's the setup that I have with it right there. And you'll be surprised when you hook it through the center like this, guys, you don't lose them hardly ever. I mean, if you get a crazy fish that's jumping all over the place, maybe, but the number of bites that you're going to get rigging it like this is going to far exceed anything else. Okay, now before we get into this area, let's talk a little bit about colors. My color selection is pretty simple. I got 3 different colors that I use basically in the Zlinkies. I use some type of the green pumpkin or watermelon, and then I'll use like more of a shad pattern, like this baby bass looking one here. And then I'll use a darker color, like a June bug or some type of a black and blue like that. Those are my 3 colors. The June bug or black and blue is obviously for a little bit more off-colored water. So if I'm fishing a wacky rig, say around shallow wood and the water visibility is 2 foot, I may be using this one. My workhorse is the green pumpkin or the watermelon. That's gonna fall into ranges of water clarity for say like 2.5 feet to greater, up to 8 or 10 foot visibility. And then also for my really clear water, and especially if I have a day that's like really bright and sunny with not much wind and clear water, then I go to the baby bass or the shad pattern. Seems like I get more bites there. So that's my 3 main color selections. Now, the main thing, like anything else, is where do you throw this thing at as far as a wacky goes? When you're talking about fishing a wacky rig in the springtime of the year, you're talking about fishing it in areas where those fish are moving up, getting ready to spawn. And when you're talking about fishing it in the springtime, we're not necessarily talking about fishing for spawning bass. You know, I highly discourage fishing for visible bedding fish. I think you need to let them spawn. But when you're talking about springtime of the year and fish getting ready to spawn, you've got a lot of fish that are up in that zone of 10 foot or less. They're cruising around, they're positioning themselves, they're looking for areas to build beds. They may be fanning beds off. After they've done spawning, they hang around guard fry or they're feeding. There's a lot of fish that remain in the wacky rig zone for about a month, which is that 10 foot of water or less. Now, the first thing, there's 3 different phases that I do in this. The first thing that I do with a wacky rig in the pre-spawn, when the water temperature is in the 50s, like the mid 50s, I'll fish a little bit deeper. So what I like to do is I like to go into those coves where I think the fish are gonna spawn, and I back off deeper. Say for example, if I've got water visibility 4 foot deep at Table Rock Lake and I'm in a spawning cove, and I know these fish spawn in 3 to 4 or 5 foot of water, I'll back out on the same banks and I'll move to 10 to 15 feet of water, and I'll throw the wacky rig out there deeper, and I'll just take my time and let it fall, down to the bottom into that 10 to 15 feet of water. Really productive for that. As that water temperature gets closer to 60 degrees, that's when I'm moving shallower, and that's when I'm targeting those same type of areas, 5 foot or less, even into the post spawn. The same with the post spawn. Those post spawn fish will stay a little bit shallower. Sometimes I will move out a little bit deeper, like in the first or second week of May, fish it around targets, like there's any docks, around stumps, grass edges, something like that. Basically just throwing it shallow. Anywhere that you think there's gonna be a fish, throw that thing in there, be patient, let it go down to the bottom. Now, when you're working a wacky rig, one of the things about it, guys, is when you throw a wacky rig out there, first of all, you wanna let it fall on a slack line. And one of the things I like to do is I throw it out there and I'll keep my bail open on my spinning reel, and I'll just shake the rod tip like this as it's falling. And I'm not trying to work it. I'm not trying to move it forward. I'm just trying to shake it to give it a little bit more action as that bait's falling, because the bait naturally, when it's falling, the tails on both ends of them will start wiggling just slightly. And then as I'm shaking it, it sort of makes it undulate a little bit like that. Now, most of the time on a wacky rig in the springtime of the year, when you're shaking it down like that, probably 80% of the time, the strike is gonna occur as the bait is falling or as soon as it touches the bottom and you move it. So say for example, if I'm shaking it down like that and it hits the bottom and I don't get a bite, I'll work it maybe a foot or two, And a lot of times, if I don't get a bite after working it, 2, 3, 4, 5 foot, I'll reel it in and make another cast. You don't have to work a wacky rig all the way back to the boat, because if you're especially the cleaner the water, if you're fishing water visibility of over 4 foot, like I said, at least 80% of the time, they're going to get it on the way down or as soon as it touches the bottom and you move it. It's a waste of time for you to let it go to the bottom and just work it back to the boat 30 or 40 feet. Very seldom are they going to hit it like that. So you can cover a lot of ground with it. But main thing, guys, is let it fall on a slack line, shake it, and don't get in a hurry. Give it time to go down, give it time to get to the bottom, and you're just going to get a lot more bites with that. One other thing that I'll tell you guys is after those fish are done spawning and they're still shallow, but they're finished spawning, cast that wacky rig out there, and as soon as it hits the water, start shaking it and reeling it back to the boat like that, and work it just under the surface. So what you want to do is throw it out there and just jerk it just under the surface, maybe an inch or two like that under the surface. And after they're done spawning, a bunch of times they'll come up almost and grab it off the surface. You can see all of them hit. It's a super fun way to catch them. It's sort of almost like a floating worm bite type of deal. But anyway, guys, that's just a little refresher course on wacky rigs. Super great way to catch them. Just a fun way to catch them. Lots of fish, quality fish. It's one of my favorite ways to catch fish in the spring. So give it a try. Hope you guys catch a few doing it. See you.